art for social inclusion in Europe and beyond. And our name, art27, was inspired by Article 27 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the right of every human being to participate in the cultural life of their community and their society. But to be able to participate in culture, one must have other rights too: the right to life, the right to safety, the right of freedom of movement, the right to political asylum, the right to food, water, and shelter. And today is December 10th, 2020. It's International Human Rights Day. And we're delighted to support this day with our live stream. We're streaming on Facebook and YouTube, and we have some great projects to share with you over the next couple of hours. And our first guest today is Julian Pfeiffer from Musicians for Human Rights. Welcome, Julian. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Greetings from Portland, Oregon.
There you go. So way over there. So I'm in the Netherlands. You're way on the west coast of the US, right?
Yes.
So yeah, thanks for joining us. Could you give us a very quick introduction, and then I think you've got a video that says a lot more. Is that correct?
Yes, we're a community of musicians gathered from around the world that is involved in three major project areas. It's performance, it's teaching and learning, and it's serving people living at the margins of society. And I've prepared a brief video that gives a sense of some of the range of our activities that maybe can be used as a prompt for some of our ensuing discussion.
Great. Okay, let's run that now and look forward to learning more.
A se stessa e è figlia di esperienze umane. La musica è anche quel qualcosa che ci porta a comportarci meglio, ad occuparci degli altri, ad ascoltare gli altri e quindi ascoltare i loro problemi, le loro necessità, l'esigenza di entrare a contatto con le persone e aiutarle attraverso questa medicina incredibile che è la musica.
In musica, suonare insieme penso che sia una delle forme più perfette e più belle di convivenza sociale, per due motivi. Il primo motivo è che fare musica insieme significa rispettare, ma rispettare proprio in modo molto ferreo certe regole. Regole che si chiamano forte, piano, tempo, ritmo, pause, tonalità, tutte cose molto noiose anche per noi, no? Però sono delle regole. E nel momento in cui un gruppo di persone che suona insieme le rispetta tutte queste regole, viene fuori una cosa magnifica. Si suonano tutti insieme ed è bellissimo. Appena uno non le rispetta, viene fuori il disastro. L'orchestra non suona più insieme. E questa è una cosa molto importante, perché poi nella società funziona la stessa cosa. Ci sono delle regole che non si chiamano più piano forte, ma si chiamano Costituzione, si chiamano leggi. E se tutti le rispettano queste leggi, ci sono dei diritti per tutti anche. Appena qualcuno non le rispetta, non va più bene.
Is a place of a classical musician in society, because we are very cut from normal society. And I think it's amazing that such project is happening, because it gives an answer, it gives a hope for for me as a musician, as a citizen, what can I bring back to society?
لو تستناني خلي قلبي تهني، لو تستناني لحظة شجرة علي احكي لك فيها كلام محكوم عليه. ما استناني استنى خليني تغنى، استناني استنى خليني تهنى. لو تستناني لحظة شجرة علي، تستناني لحظة شجرة يا ندى يا ندى لو تستناني الحرم شجرة علي.
Women, young girls, children who were accompanying their mothers to prison had come into the prison because of poverty-related issues, not because they were criminals. I eventually got cleared and compensated, but when I got out, I set up this organization called Clean Start Kenya. And at Clean Start Kenya, we go into the prisons, we empower these women, these young girls, and the children. For we have to truly think about the others who have been left behind due to, in particular, lack of opportunities. So thank you.
Dopo questo non puoi rimanere la stessa persona, devi cambiare per forza e secondo me diventi una persona migliore.
Se almeno uno dei nostri ascoltatori esce col dubbio la sera dopo il concerto che forse anche nel paese in cui vive i diritti umani vengono calpestati, abbiamo raccolto il nostro successo.
Wonderful. That was a great overview. A lot of action.
Yeah, it's actually pretty interesting that it ended with Beethoven's Egmont overture, because Egmont was a count in 16th century Netherlands in the Low Countries who resisted the imposition of the Inquisition by the Spanish.
Right.
And because of that resistance, he was ultimately beheaded. And that sparked a lot of protests in the Netherlands, ultimately led to the liberation of the Netherlands from Spanish control. So we like to choose repertoire that really addresses human rights issues, and that certainly represents one that's relevant today and every day.
Right, and you're sharing that story of the music as it's before it's played, or as part of the presentation, or how does the audience engage with that story?
We write very specific program notes that emphasize either the setting of the composer's life or the meaning of the music. We sometimes have discussion with the audience from the stage as well.
Right, wonderful. Okay, and so as I understand you, there are two major orchestras or ensembles. Is that right? One in Italy and.
Yes, there
Yeah.
there are two. There's the Human Rights Orchestra, which is a classical orchestra, and for that we gather musicians from all over Europe, sometimes including from Palestine and South America, Japan, the US as well. And we give concerts primarily in Switzerland, as well as in Italy, and those are fundraisers. So we raise money to donate. The other is the Human Rights Band, which consists of 7 musicians, oud and singer, clarinet, accordion, bass, percussion, and they're playing songs from all over the world.
Okay, how many concerts have you done?
Well, the band just started up a couple of years ago, so they're doing a few concerts a year. We opened the Fundamental Rights Agency Forum in 2018, and they've played also for the Global Campus of Human Rights. And the little video shot you saw was from Ferrara Internazionale Festival. Human Rights Orchestra plays generally every year and a half, 2 years in Switzerland, in Lucerne. And as well, we've started to perform in Geneva. And very early on, we gave some concerts in Italy.
Right.
And those concerts have raised a few $100,000 Swiss francs that we've donated to organizations around the world.
Can you give us any examples of who you've donated to, and you know, what the impact of that has been?
Yes, well, we supported recently a Bolivian tribe that was seeking to reclaim their land and water rights, a tribe in the Amazon jungle. The woman you heard speaking, she created this organization that helps women living in detention transition back to civil society. We've supported people living with disabilities in Italy, and an organization called Allegro Moderato that teaches these people living with disabilities to play instruments, and then sends them as an ensemble into hospitals to perform for people in pediatric wards. So now these people are serving the community. It's sort of a reversal of roles,
inspiring.
really restoring their dignity. So those are just a few of the examples.
Such a range, how many people are involved overall?
Well, in the orchestra size ranges from 50 to 65 musicians each year, and there's tends to be a core group and different ones coming and going every year, because we like to spread knowledge of the organization and also inspire musicians in other countries, other orchestras and opera companies to participate and think about what they can be doing in their own communities.
Right, got it. Okay. And this year in 2020, there's a particular focus in the human rights movement, and on today specifically, looking at the effect of the pandemic, COVID-19, and looking to rebuild from this pandemic into a better world. To highlight the issues of human rights and human rights violations, and also rebuild societies and cultures in a better way than they were before. Have you seen these themes occurring in your organization in terms of rebuilding communities, or people post lockdown and seeing human rights impacted previously, and how they're maybe coming back to a different place?
Well, yes. I mean, we have had a 4-year program running in Thessaloniki in Greece, working directly in refugee camps.
Right.
And now that can't go on, and it's been on hold. But one thing that has sparked is that we've taken one of our programs, which is called the Lullaby Project, that was started by Carnegie Hall, and it helps young mothers compose lullabies for their infant children. And we've started to experiment with doing that online as a result. But it's difficult because that requires a lot of intimacy and working very, very closely together. We also have been working on creating a master's level course, a 1-year course focused on training musicians to work with vulnerable people in social settings.
Mm.
And that also has been put on hold, but we really want to bring that to the fore, because what's happened as a result of the pandemic, of course, is that the needs are greater than ever. But the other thing that's happened in the music world are that many more musicians are unemployed, and
Yeah.
the prospects of their coming back to life as a performing musician, to the extent that they were, are highly limited now. So getting involved in working with vulnerable groups and learning about aspects of music therapy that could be applied in social settings, I think is an important contribution.
Mm. So are you saying that musicians have got more capacity than they had before to work on these projects because they're less engaged in performance and their regular routine? Is that what you mean, or?
Well, yes. I mean, they're going to have fewer opportunities, but as it is, many musicians are not fully employed anyway, and we want to make them aware of other work they can be doing, because it's not part of the conservatory training to
Right.
learn about service to the community and to learn about music therapy courses you could take and a career to go into. So we want to bring that more into the center of people's attention.
Oh, very good. Okay, which is a good segue into asking, how can people get involved in your organization? What support are you looking for? What would you like people to do from this conversation? Someone watching today or watching 6 months from now, because this video will still be available then.
Yes. Well, we like building programs that are across countries and also across disciplines. So we'd love to work with academic institutions and with organizations in other countries. We've started a program at the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights and the Global Campus of Human Rights, which is a network of universities. We also like to learn about best practices and what others are doing. So we love to hear from other organizations so we can see what information we can put out there that benefits others, as well as learn from it ourselves.
Okay, good. And what's the best way to reach you? Is it through the website?
Yes, it's through musiciansforhumanrights.org, or it could also be through our Facebook page.
Okay, what's the facebook.com/musicians for human rights?
Yes.
/
Right, but the website is
also
perhaps the
goes
best
there.
and gives people a sense of what we're doing.
Excellent. So there's a few things backed up for 2021. It sounds like that it wasn't possible to, obviously run some of the events that you wanted to this year.
Well, one that in particular it's of interest to us is that a book is coming out called Music and Human Rights that's being published by Routledge in the UK. And this was essentially a co-production of the Global Campus and Musicians for Human Rights and the University of Lucerne and SOAS University of London. So we look forward to really informing the music world, the arts world, academia about this project. And then, of course, we hope to restore concerts that had to be canceled this past year, including the Human Rights Band in Parma and the Human Rights Orchestra in Lucerne in May. So yes, we all face a backlog of activities, and then restarting our social programs in Italy and Greece and Switzerland as well.
Well, it's going to, provided things get back to some degree of normality, it's going to be an exciting year next year. And it's great to hear about all the things you're doing in Greece at the moment as well, especially with the turmoil there, with Moria and some of the violence that people have been faced with in repositioning themselves, going to new camps, or just getting displaced from one thing to another. So it's good to see that you've got some support there. Excellent.
Yes, on the other hand, Yeah, I was just going to say that some of the programs, when we restart them in Greece, we're finding out that some of the refugees and asylum seekers, they're no longer there, but in a good way. They've moved on to France or Germany or Finland. So we're very pleased by that.
Yeah, unfortunately, some of those they leave behind there are in a tough spot. So there's
Yes.
much work to do, and that's why we're talking, to highlight the issues, and so that we don't forget about it in the run up to Christmas. And in Europe and the US, we can get bound up in festivities, but there's a lot else going on in the world, which is very important. Okay, well, thanks again for joining us today, Julian. It's a great message. So musiciansforhumanrights.org. We encourage our viewers and listeners to get involved, and we'll speak to you again very soon.
Thank you, Ray.
All right, thank you.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Comment on va réaliser notre clip là. Freedom, freedom, Jah Rastafari. Hein?
stop lì.
You don't need help.
Okay.
Sure.
C'est bien de rester l'heure du temps. Poi magari tu non immagini. So yeah, where the beats they are coming. Yeah, for 2 minutes they will be there. Sorry, my friend. Freedom.
I want of freedom, freedom. Oh, I want of freedom, freedom. Oh, refugees cry, refugees.
Hello, I'm Ray Gibson from art27. Art27 is a platform of artists and arts organisations that use the power of art and social inclusion in Europe and beyond. And our name, art27, was inspired by Article 27 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the right of every human being to participate in the cultural life of their community and society. But to be able to participate in culture, one must have other rights: the right to life, the right to safety, the right to freedom of movement, the right to political asylum, the right to food, water, and shelter. And on today, December 10th, 2020, is International Rights Day. We're delighted to support this day with our live stream. We're streaming on Facebook and YouTube, and we've got some great speakers and guests today over the next couple of hours. And our next guest is Una van Geel from the Netherlands. Welcome, Una. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, thanks.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes.
For our audience, please, could you give us a quick introduction, who you are, what you're working on, and your interest today?
Absolutely. I'm, as I said, Una van Geel, I'm a musician, but more and more I feel socially engaged. It started all with being active in the climate movement, and then you start thinking in a broader sense of how you would like our world to look. So that also brought me in contact with Rico Voorberg. You might know him.
Mm-hmm.
He's very active and very has a lot of concern for the people in refugee camps, on the outsides of Europe in this, and I would say a dreadful situation a lot of times. And he came with a wonderful idea how we could connect as artists with artists in refugee camps.
Mm-hmm.
So at the moment we're setting that up, and I must say the whole thing was starting to happen when the big fire happened in Moria. And we were working there with connections through the Hope Center,
yeah,
and also which is an art center, and with Rudy Kimpioka, who hopefully will be joining us soon here. And he indeed knows a lot of people there who are either musicians or painters, and you know, we're connecting them to us now. Hey, there's Rudy. Yes, fantastic. And Rudy has its own Raad International Music, you know, his own foundation and people where he's working with. And also I myself now, for instance, yesterday collaborated with them on a new song and recorded here. So we really also culturally showing that we're collaborating together.
Wonderful. Okay, very good. Very good. And Rudy joins us as well. That's perfect timing, Rudy. Are you okay? You had a little trouble connecting. Are you safe where you are? Are you okay to talk? You may be on mute, Rudy, possibly, if you just look in the bottom left corner of Zoom. You might not be able to hear us. Let's see, he looks like he's focused and concentrating and maybe trying to figure out the tech. Okay, we'll carry on for a moment, Una. And when did you and Rudy meet?
Oh, he immediately also, you know, stepped forward out of the connection of the Hope Center. Like, hey, I know a lot of people, and I love to organize things, and that's what he's really doing, and reaching out.
Yeah. Okay, and currently you have a project with an Afghani female visual artist, if I understand that well?
That's correct, yeah. So the idea is that she will paint, and I will compose music to it. And also in these sort of collaborations, on both sides there will be, you know, not only the works, but there will be interviews on how it was to collaborate and work together.
Right, okay, so the message gets out there.
Yeah.
So there's a local impact, of course. So is there a local audience, and then things get recorded and shared online? Is that how it works?
Absolutely, yeah. And especially, of course, in these times, you cannot go somewhere, you cannot fly to meet people. So we have to do it in this way.
Yeah,
we really want to see the humanitarian equality of people.
Right. Okay, Rudy, you've dialed back in. Are you able to hear us, and can we hear you?
Yes, I'm here. Yeah.
Perfect.
I'm sorry because it's raining here, so that's why the connection sometimes is not good.
Right. Okay.
I'm so sorry. It's raining here.
That's all right. Rudy, for the benefit of our audience, can you just tell everybody where you're actually dialing in from? It may not work so well.
You.
Oh.
I have problem with my connection.
That's okay. That's all right. No, it's coming in and out. Because Una, if I understand it well, Rudy is actually in camp, isn't he? Or very close?
In Mytilene, so very close, and he's working a lot with musicians from the camp. A lot of fellow African musicians, but also musicians from a lot of different regions. And he's really combining that with the Greek local people, and he really wants to spread a very positive signal in the world, and, you know, showing what they do. Yeah.
So what kind of impact have you seen from these projects? You know, have you had feedback from people in the camp or the local community or people online? What kind of messages are you getting back?
I mean, people love sort of, you know, the idea, and sometimes, you mean for the artist to artist collaboration?
Yeah, for example.
Yeah, and there, well, what you feel that also in the practicalities of life, sometimes if you work with artists who have still a refugee status, they might have to move quickly and go somewhere else. So sometimes the process is just slowed down somewhat, but in general the spirit is good. Yeah. And for instance, with Rudy now, unfortunately the tech connection is not good, but it's always a super quick line of communication.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and you know, you're so close to this, much closer than many people watching this live stream or listening to it later. What are you seeing in Greece and in the camps in terms of human rights violations?
Yeah, of course, there's lots and lots. I mean, the news has been full of it, and also, but I would feel really like somewhat talking from the outside while Rudy is actually in the line of fire.
Right.
So
Well, let's go back to Rudy.
let's see
Rudy,
if he
can we hear from you, Rudy? I don't know if you can hear our question. We're interested in,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
being there very close to the situation. What is the situation now in terms of human rights, and which human rights are being violated?
You hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Shall I ask the question again? So we're just
Could you hear
interested.
me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We'd love to hear from you in terms of human rights locally in Greece, as we obviously watch the news and we see the 13,000 people choosing between moving to a new camp or going to a new fenced-off camp and or living in the streets. So we hear snippets of what's happening, but you're there locally. What is the situation with human rights now? Which human rights are being violated?
Yeah, right now in Lesbos, if you don't hear me, I can put audio, but if you hear me, I can put it.
I can hear you.
So like now, I can say in Lesbos, there is not the human right here, because to see the living condition of people are living here, it is not human rights. I think here they treat like refugees like they are animal. I can say that. There is not human right for refugees. So the refugees are trying to fight by themselves and to try to speak out. But in this, in Lesbos, the place like in the island I am, I don't think there is really human rights here, because if there was human rights here, the things cannot be like you can see it like today. So I don't know, it is in all over Europe or it is only here. There is things you can say, these things is not good. Even there is no law, you can just understand this cannot happen, but it is happening here. I don't know where is exactly the human right here. There is not. I cannot say something about that. There is not human rights here, because you cannot believe that the way people are living here in the living condition. So there is nothing. Yeah, there's nothing. There is some respect a bit for police sometimes, and but there is some discrimination for the people. Some people they understand, but in general, there is not human rights for the refugees in Greece.
So people don't feel safe. They don't have permanent shelter. So some of these fundamental human rights are really missing, violated. And what do you see in terms?
No.
Go ahead. Right. And so the projects that you're doing with UNO and with others, how are you helping the local situation?
So the project I'm doing, like for music, it is good for some people. The people they like us, they like refugees, and they like music. And for other people, they hate me. I can say that I has been a victim. Like the day I was making my video clip of Corona, no, Freedom song.
Yeah.
And because we posted some video when we were dancing, and there is someone, he just took this video and they said really bad words, really bad word for us. They said many things. And that's why people was just making a comments in the bad way for the refugees. I was really sad. I said, where is the human rights? So they are happy when people are crying. They are happy when people are trying to look the way to leave the island to try to find for safety. Some people, they feel it happy because that's it. The guys didn't understand. We were making the clip and many of thousand Greek, I don't know, Greek people, there was, because there was writing this in Greek. They said bad word for us. And I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel safe for that because how? It is not only for the first time. And the previous time when Moria camp been burned, always the musician, we were singing in the route, but some people, they posted in a bad way. So sometimes I don't feel safe for my project, but I'm doing that to have to look for the good people, like the good musician like Owen, and also to connect people and to bring back the joy and to make people to be more busy, and also to try to make like to give the opportunity and to connecting the different culture in Europe. So this is I'm trying to do this project. Maybe in the future it can become bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's fantastic what you are doing, because it's important to highlight the issues and make them known locally and internationally. Otherwise, they continue. We've read about neo-fascists taking advantage of the opportunity and joining in the violence. And I'm sorry that you don't always feel safe. And I hope that you've not been, physically threatened. But yeah, it's a tough situation, certainly. Now, I understand
and
that.
I have also one quick representation. I don't know if you would like just to show maybe for 2 minutes, if you would like just to look.
Sure.
Let's try it, yeah.
Show what you do, yeah.
Just for the rap music, I just to explain, like this is, you can see?
Not yet, it's probably just coming through if you've tried to share your screen.
Yeah, I share the screen.
Okay, it's probably just coming through. We'll let you know when we can see it. But you can already start talking about the slides, and hopefully it will come through as you're talking. That's okay.
Yeah, so this is the presentation of rap music. I was trying to show you when I start rap music, what is the goals, what we are trying to do for the future, and when I start rap music, and where is my goal is going. So because you cannot see the screen.
Can you see, may I interrupt, Rudy? There's a little green button in the middle of the bottom of the screen. Have you already clicked that, share screen?
Yeah, okay.
There you go. All right, it's coming through now, I think.
Now you can see it, huh?
Yes.
Now we can see it perfectly, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So, rad music.
Yeah, this is rad music, and it is refugees African dance. I just write here what is rad music, why the music is connecting us, and also when I start from beginning, when I start rad music. And yeah, it's from beginning it was like international, because I was here with a lot of nationality, like people from France, German, so many people was there, and this is what we are doing. This is our goal. We do dance, music, and we make also some social activities. And yeah, this is Greece in Lesbos, and we have a lot of projects we want to do in Greece, also in Europe. And yeah, this is two things. We had we done for like we pray like a Corona freedom song, and
Right.
we have also Corona song. This song it is like to
Okay. I think maybe clicking the video was too much for the stream, and it maybe shut it down. Well, we were very lucky. We got some good snippets there of rad music, and how that began. And it looks like there's a website for that, humanrhythmcare.com. I think we might be able to put that on screen in a moment as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we get a chance to say thank you to Rudy. We are just now running out of time, but it would be nice to just see him once again and say thanks for sharing that. So anyway, for our viewers, you can find more information at Human Rhythm Care. Hey, Rudy.
I want to say some things. Can I?
Yeah, we have just one more minute. If you would like to share a last thought, that would be great.
Yeah, last word. Yeah, I'm so sorry, and the connection was very good from beginning because now it's a big rain and the wind. That's why it's moving the connection.
Right.
So I want to thank you, Owen. He's really good, and we are connecting together like with work of shame projects. So we are working together. He's helping us. So in the music way, I'm so happy with that. And I want to thank you so much for him. And also, I think here we didn't have big opportunity to talk, but maybe you can do more events. It will be maybe fun. I can explain more. Yeah. Thank you so much for all of you.
You're welcome. Rudy, we will put your presentation on our Facebook page. So if anybody wants to go there and check it out in full, then they can do that straight away or later today or tomorrow. It will just be there. So yeah, thanks for showing us the first couple of the slides, but nothing's lost. Everybody will have a chance to check that out. And thank you, Uno, and thank you, Rudy, for joining us. We got through it even with a poor connection. And it was really great to have someone local, on the ground, seeing the situation live and sharing their thoughts. So thanks so much, Rudy. And stay safe.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you both.
So much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
tienes, no importa lo que traes, aquí nos importa lo que haces con lo que llevas dentro.
Diferente piel pero misma sangre, si nos dividimos el mundo se nos cae. Aquí usamos arte, es nuestra defensa, todos somos uno y aprendemos fortaleza.
Nos âmes sont unies, mais on les détruit. Épargner les enfants, il faudrait les instruire. Car le plus important est leur avenir. And the time goes by, on ne voit pas venir. Help the people live another day, help them get through.
Hello, I'm Ray Gibson from art27. Art27 is a platform of artists and arts organisations that use the power of art for social inclusion in Europe and beyond. Our name, art27, was inspired by Article 27 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the right of every human being to participate in the cultural life of their community and society. But to be able to participate in culture, one must have other rights: the right to life, the right to safety, the right to freedom of movement, the right to political asylum, the right to food, water and shelter. And today is December 10th, 2020. It's International Human Rights Day. And we're joined by some people presenting great projects and work that they're doing around the world. And right now we're joined by Kate Cable, who's in Surrey in the UK, who tells us she's just actually come from a dark, cold football pitch in the UK to come onto the live stream. Welcome, Kate. How are you? Have you warmed up?
I have warmed up, thank you, Ray. Yeah, I have. I was on the pitch about half an hour ago.
Right. So please tell us, were you the referee or playing football or doing something else?
I'd love to lie and say, yes, I'm playing football. No, I was standing on the sidelines sort of shouting, "Are you all right?" every time someone falls over.
So who was playing?
So it's a football session we run every week for displaced young people living in Surrey.
Right.
And so by displaced people, we mean sort of refugees, asylum seekers, and anyone really under the age of 25. And because it's football, it's very, very popular. So we had a big turnout tonight.
Very good. Well, it's nice that people can still get together. Have you managed to keep a few events like this going even through the lockdowns and the pandemic this year?
So on and off. I mean, organised sport has been allowed to start again. We had a month off in November. And we've been able to do certain other things in terms of, in response to COVID guidance and COVID restrictions, but obviously nowhere near as much as we used to do. We've had to move a lot online, like a lot of organisations do. We've had to really think on our feet and come up with what would work best in a situation that's always changing.
Okay. Forgive me because I'm kind of starting in the middle here at what's going on today, but can you tell us about Big Leaf and how this started and what your goals are?
So we're a small organisation. We're based in Surrey, which is just to the south of London. And we sort of exist, we've been around for 2 years now, and we exist to create better opportunities for displaced young people who are living in Surrey. And by that, we sort of look at 4 main streams, the streams of sort of education, so helping to support within education, within health, personal health, safety, and also within forging links with the community. One of our biggest things is trying to combat the social isolation that many people live in when they arrive in the UK. and creating a sense of, I don't know, hope, positive hope, that the fact that they can have a life here and it can be a good life, and just trying to help people believe in that when they've actually gone through a difficult time, which is still ongoing.
Right. How many people are we talking about in Surrey or surrounding area, and what type of accommodation do they have?
So Surrey has the third largest number of displaced young people in the UK.
Really? Okay.
Probably because of our proximity to Kent, which is of course where the port is, and to London. So numbers wise, it's very difficult to work that one out, because they're categorized in different ways. For sort of unaccompanied asylum seeking young people, I believe that there's around 130 in Surrey. Right. But then that doesn't include people over the age of 18, that particular figure. And it doesn't include people who perhaps come here on the resettlement scheme from refugee camps. So like I say, it's a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
What was your second question, Ray?
What kind of accommodation do they have?
So that's a mix. I mean, some can go into foster care, and we can find that really lucky ones can go into foster care. Some go into sort of supported lodgings, which are shared accommodation, where they'll have a key worker who will sort of keep an eye and check that everything's going okay. And some go into hostel accommodation, things like the YMCA or other similar institutions to that.
Okay. Right. And how are they fitting into society then? Are they, is this 130, 150 people, are they quite visible, or they're isolated and hidden, or?
It's an interesting question, that one. I mean, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. A lot of them come from very, very different backgrounds to what you'll see in sort of Surrey. Parts of Surrey tend to be quite affluent, and not perhaps as culturally diverse as places like London.
Right.
But also there are the other barriers to fitting in terms of, language is the first one. Sort of a cultural understanding, cultural literacy can make it very difficult to fit in. And, a lack of understanding actually on both sides of, I don't like to talk in sides, but within the community, it's very difficult for the local community sometimes to accept that we've got these young people here, and, or even to see them.
Right. Understand. Are they going to school? Sorry if that might be a daft question, but maybe it's not such a daft question.
Right, it's a really big question. So some are, as it's under the age of 16, some are found places in schools, some are found places in colleges. It's not always easy. Yeah. Some colleges close their doors at the beginning of the academic year, which here is September, October. So if you're not arriving tidily at the beginning of the academic year, you can find yourself waiting for an awful long time for a college place.
Oh no, yeah, which is, that's not a recipe for success at that age, right?
It's not. I mean, in terms of personal fulfillment, it makes it very, very difficult. But also, actually, for the children that are going to school, I mean, a lot of schools really do their best, but you're taking in young people who might not have had formal schooling in their background, and putting them in a year 10, year 11 class where you've got GCSEs to think about, and I think it's really difficult all around, that one.
Yeah, I mean, potentially you've got 30 new friends, but you also have 30 new relationships to deal with if you end up in a class like that, don't you? And that can be really challenging.
Yeah, really challenging. Yeah. And like I say, if you haven't had the experience of formal education anyway, that's a whole new thing to learn very, very quickly.
Yeah. Okay. Now, during the quick introduction there, I mentioned some of these, fundamental human rights. Food, water, shelter, the right to free movement and safety, because it's International Human Rights Day. But which human rights do you think are, being violated or are seriously at risk in the people that you deal with?
So I use the term at risk because I think, violation, it almost sort of implies a deliberate action, which is not always the case. I mean, I often think in terms of the rights of the child and the Declaration of the Rights of the Child. And I know that within that declaration, I think it's Article 22, is specified for refugee children.
All right.
And it talks about protecting their rights and providing them with appropriate support, protection.
Yeah.
So that's quite a wide one, because then you have to go back and look at the rest of it. I mean, I think Article 6, I'm just looking at my notes because actually I don't know all the articles off by heart, and I should. Article 6 is the one about the right to survive and to develop and to reach your full potential. So I would question that is at risk if you are being placed in a educational situation or educational placement that's not suitable for you, whether that be that you're being put in a huge school where the focus is on exams for people who've been there for 5 years, or whether it's because you haven't been given a college place, or because maybe you're in a college but they haven't got the class at your level, so they're going to just put you into any kind of level.
Yeah.
So I'd say that one actually is at risk. And, you know, the right, you've probably talked about this in your earlier sessions, but 31 is the right to leisure and to culture and to play. And it's difficult to do that if you haven't got a transport budget. You know, we have young people who'd love to come and play football with us tonight, but if they can't afford to get there, that's an issue.
And in some circumstances also, if it's not safe to get there.
Yeah. Do you mean in terms of actually the journey, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, in some circumstances, you know, people don't feel that it's safe to travel around on their own or in a small group because they might be singled out, you know, and maybe picked on or bullied or worse. You know, we've been in that situation too.
Yeah, we have heard that. And actually at the moment with COVID, we've had some young people really too scared to leave their rooms because they've heard all sorts of things. So supporting them in the understanding of what's going on is really important. And if that's not happening, then I'd say that was certainly one of the risks that we're talking about. There's the other one about things being in the best interest of the child as well. You know, it's very clearly stated that everybody must act in the best interest of the child. But then we've got young people who are waiting for a Home Office decision. Even the first interview, they can be waiting 1 year, 2 years, and they're left without any kind of information, any kind of knowledge, and that limbo is torturous. So I say definitely that one as well is at risk.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's a good distinction you make about violation and at risk, because at risk can also be through inaction, right? Not just direct action. So if there are not enough people to conduct interviews and move the process along, you know, then it can be just as damaging as anything else. So we've heard about, you know, leisure and football or soccer, which sounds great. What other projects have there been? I'm particularly interested if there are any arts and cultural projects as well, calling you from Art27.
Yeah, you don't want to hear about horses. No,
horses are fine. Nothing against animals either.
We do a lot. We do a lot with the arts. We really do. I mean, I think it says in the presentation that arts is such a good way of finding that voice, which there isn't a huge platform for voice here for the young people to have a voice in what they do. And we found that using photography, painting projects, things like that, they can do that. So that's the sort of thing we look. But we work a lot with fantastic local arts provider, Surrey Arts, who have a community music orchestra, which was the track playing actually in the presentation. We do a lot with music. So for example, at the moment we're running a pilot project where we are bringing some of the displaced young people that we support along with some local young people of the same age, and their challenge is to meet online under the direction of these brilliant tutors and to create a song that reflects their own experiences and the sort of music that they like. So we have to be quite careful with that to make sure that we're really listening to the young people in what they want, especially when it comes to music, whereas what they want is probably very different to what's on my Spotify. That's working at the moment. And we're working also, we've got a professional rapper, a guy called Chimpo.
Chimpo?
Yeah.
Wow. I'm so out of touch.
Oh, well, you won't be for the next one because we're being executively produced by Chesney Hawkes.
Okay. Oh my God.
But it's about bringing in people from the industries, trying to bring the community together in this level playing field of creating a song from scratch, which everyone can actually contribute to, because youngsters, they don't often meet on a level playing field. If they're meeting in education, it's not a level playing field.
Yeah. Yeah, but a song definitely is. I can relate to that. Yeah. Yeah. Especially a song that's not yet written. Okay. And, this time of year can be stressful for families generally, right? That relations are often strained and people feel the urge to meet up because of Christmas, but, there may be conflict in a family or something like that. Are people that you're dealing with more or less isolated at this time of year typically?
Well, I'd probably say more isolated because for the simple issues that colleges shut down,
Mm.
often services stop. I think people take a break over that Christmas period. And even if you don't celebrate Christmas, you can't be immune to the sort of this year, I think, slightly forced jollity about the season of goodwill and peace. And
Mm.
that can be quite hard when the world is very different to you and you don't live in a world of jolly peace and
Mm.
people sharing presents. And so I'd say, yeah, it's a difficult time of year. Plus, it's the UK. It's cold, it's dark, it's wet.
Yeah.
All of these things come into play.
Do you have any meetups going on over the Christmas period or Christmas week
Yeah,
or
we
anything?
do. We try. I mean, what we'll do next week with football is we usually have a Christmas party. We can't do that this year. So we've got some really fantastic supporters. And with them, we've made a whole load of Christmas stockings full of kind of useful gifts and fun gifts as well, but useful gifts that we can hand out. And it's not really about giving somebody a gift. It's more the acknowledgement of them and making people feel included in this festival that everyone else is involved in.
Yeah.
And then, we'll be looking at, we have online Zoom meetings and stuff that we do. We have sort of English language and quizzes and stuff like that. And that will continue over Christmas.
Okay. Very good. Very good. And for people listening, how can people get involved? What would you ask people to do or offer over the next, few weeks and going into next year? I mean, people can find you, let me get this right, bigleaffoundation.org.uk, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And we have just been running a Christmas appeal. I should know this. I have to speak to the rest of the team, but there are plenty of charities similar to us that are also running appeals that are really worthwhile. I mean, we always welcome people to get in touch, and if people want to know more about the work and why we do it, we're always happy to talk or to arrange some kind of meeting. And it's just nice to hear from people.
Yeah. Oh, good. So I think we've probably got the link to the website up on screen, and could people just write to you from there? There's an email address.
Yeah, there's an email
they
address.
can get in touch. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay. Any closing words or requests? I think this is a really nice, sharing of your projects and what's been going on. It's really clear, and it's great that you're having an impact in a local community. And I didn't realise that Surrey was the third largest population for displaced people at all. So I've definitely learned something new as well today.
Well, I mean, for Christ, I should have thought about this, but actually, if people would just like to keep an eye on this music project we're doing at the moment, and we'll publicise it probably on Twitter in the new year when we've had time for the guys to write it. And if people would like to engage with us on that, just react to it, listen to it, see what they think, that would be fantastic.
What's the name of the song, or is it not yet decided?
Not written yet.
Not written yet. All right. Okay. Well, we're intrigued.
So am I.
when will it be done, do you think? Or?
Well, we've got a couple more. We're doing a composition session starts on this Saturday, and then we've got another one next week. Then a bit of a time for them to get their ideas and put some things together over the Christmas holidays. So I think, January. It's meant to be a song for 21, so sometime around January it should be ready.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, thanks again for joining us, Kate. I wish you success and a good rest of the year and going into 2021.
Likewise for you as well.
Please continue what you're doing.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Happy Christmas.
Hello, I'm Ray Gibson from art27. Art27 is a platform of artists and arts organisations that use the power of art for social inclusion in Europe and beyond. Our name, art27, was inspired by Article 27 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the right of every human being to participate in the cultural life of their community and society. But to be able to participate in culture, one must have other rights too: the right to life, the right to safety, the right to freedom of movement, the right to political asylum, the right to food, water, and shelter. And on today, December 10th, 2020, is International Human Rights Day. And we have our closing discussion now with a panelist group of 3 guests joining us. And we'll talk further about how we see the impact on human rights in today's world. So we're joined by Edward Nazarski, former director of Amnesty International in the Netherlands and co-founder of the Migrant Offshore Aid Station, MOAS. We're also joined by Mitra Nazar, who's an independent correspondent from the Balkans who worked with agencies like NOS, VPRO, the BBC, DW, and others, and Amir Basic, who's a child protection program manager at Save the Children in Northwest Balkans. So welcome. Guess how is everybody? Is everyone safe? Ready for a good talk?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So for the benefit of our viewers and listeners, I would like to ask each of you to give an introduction to yourselves and your work, and particularly in light of the past 5 years in the Balkans, Eastern Europe, and in Greece, and the refugee crisis. It's terribly unfair to ask someone to summarize 5 years in 5 minutes, but perhaps we could ask it from your personal point of view and your personal work. And beginning with Mitra, if you could, please.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, I'm a journalist. I'm currently a correspondent in Turkey, actually. I'm talking to you from Istanbul. I moved here 9 months ago, but before that move, I was a correspondent in the Balkans for about 6 years, covering 11 countries from Hungary to Albania and everything in between. So I've seen a lot of migrant refugee stories. I've traveled loads through the region in the past 5 years. Something that actually began in 2013 for me as a reporter when I was in Bulgaria near the Turkish border, where in a short period of time, then it's something that has been a bit forgotten, but it already started then when thousands of refugees walked through the forest on the border between Turkey and Bulgaria. Most of them Syrians. They came straight from the Syrian war, and Bulgaria had not seen this coming. They were not prepared. It was chaos. We went to camps where people were sleeping in tents in very harsh winter conditions. So this was the start of what eventually would grow into this big refugee crisis of 2015-16. I was based in Belgrade, and in 2014-15, early 15, we already started reporting on this Balkan route. You know, the hotspots were there in northern Serbia, in Subotica. There was an old bricks factory where a lot of people were staying so they could make their way through to Hungary. Also, the first signs of resistance from the local communities started to show then. I interviewed a far-right leader of the mayor of a small village in southern Hungary, close to the border. And that was very remarkable because he was actually the first official starting to say that these people that were coming, they were dangerous, they could have diseases. He said they could be jihadists. So that started then, and but back then people still could fairly easily cross over. And of course everything changed after 2015, 2016. We all know the stories. And then the EU-Turkey deal, of course. the numbers went down of people crossing the Balkan route, but I kept reporting, especially because it was clear that the Balkan route became much more dangerous, and the routes were shifting to Bosnia, to Romania, very rough. I mean, I spoke to refugees and migrants in Sarajevo that came through Albania and Montenegro, where it's very mountainous, it's very dangerous. There are wild animals that they encountered. Up until last year, I was last time in northwestern Bosnia, where the situation right now is also very, very critical, with just a big lack of shelter, of centers for people to stay. And now I'm in Istanbul, and it's staying in topic because I have focused on reporting on the pushbacks in the Aegean Sea. So yeah, that's a very, very hot topic at the moment. I guess the next coming years it will continue for me professionally, at least.
Okay, that's a very good summary. So you've seen, you mentioned resistance from local communities as people were moving through these areas, and lack of good shelter, and I'm assuming there's other human rights that have been at risk along the way as well.
Yes, and that's what you saw. I mean, in the Balkans now, the focus point is very much on the border with Croatia. So you have North Bosnia, that is at this moment the only viable route still to cross into Croatia and then to continue to Slovenia. That's the plan that most people have. But the Croatian police has there's at this point so much evidence that there have been physical abuses from Croatian border police towards migrants and refugees, which is of course an additional problem there. This is a thing that is a big concern also within the European Union, because Croatia there is effectively the gatekeeper of Fortress Europe, right? But according to, at this point, so many reports, they are violating very basic human rights.
Okay, thank you, Mitra. Edward, may I ask you the same question? So from your experience the last 5 or so years, what have you seen in your own work, please?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ray. Well, as a director of Amnesty, I was in 2015 in as well Lampedusa as Sicily to see how migrants, refugees arrived from the Mediterranean and were brought to a camp in Lampedusa or to camps in Sicily. In the spring of 2016, I was in Lesbos and in Athens and also the Greek-Macedonian border. And I must say, before Amnesty, I worked at the Dutch Council on Refugees and also in the European Council on Refugees. I'd seen quite some refugee situations and refugee camps, but what I saw in Greece was really shocking. The lack of everything, as you said, Ray, basic rights as shelter, food, healthcare, education, all non-existing, no registration, nothing at all. And especially at the Greek-Macedonian border, the situation was really desperate because the borders just had been closed when I was there, by coincidence, of course, but they had just been closed and people were really, really very desperate. What I saw in terms of advocacy and in terms of trying to influence politicians is that, well, we had been warning that the war in Syria would lead to more refugees and that more people would need international protection. Politicians at first didn't want to hear that really, because they said, wow, you're always a bit exaggerating and well, let's see how it develops and we'll see what we can do. But then suddenly when very many people started coming, there was a general sense of panic in all over European countries. And they said, well, we can't cope with so many refugees. We have to do very unorthodox measures, etc. And then they came up with the Turkey deal, which meant that people were stuck almost forever at the Greek islands and have to wait there very, very long before their asylum application is even taken into consideration, which doesn't mean that it's decided upon. So this is a direct consequence of not looking far some years ahead, and also not wanting to have too many refugees within the borders. I saw at the same time that my Turkish colleague Idil Ezer was accused of being a member of a terrorist organization, not directly because of refugees, but after the attempt for a coup in Turkey. There was a general crackdown on human rights, and Idil was imprisoned for over a year and lives now in Norway. I saw at the same time that in Hungary, the situation, and Mitra already said a few things about that, the situation in Hungary was getting worse and worse, and that Prime Minister Orban used a narrative on migrants to show that he was really the guy that would save Hungary from strange and foreign influences. And situation in Hungary deteriorated, a lot of threats. And my former colleague, Julia Ivan from Amnesty Hungary, now lives in Amsterdam. So you see, also on a level of trying to advocate for human rights, it was becoming more difficult in some countries. I saw also in Holland, in the Netherlands, the situation changed quickly. And just one example, in March of 2016, so only 5 years ago, not totally 5 years ago, I had the honor to present a very prestigious award to Regina Catrambone from the Migrant Offshore Asylum Organization. They tried to rescue migrants in the Mediterranean, and they were awarded this very prestigious medal, which has reminiscences to the Dutch resistance in the Second World War, in the presence of our Queen Maxima. Only 2 weeks ago, Parliament voted in favor of a resolution from one of the parliamentarians in order to make it possible to criminalize organizations that rescue people in the Mediterranean. So you see in 5 years' time, a giant shift in opinion in the majority of Parliament and public opinion, which makes it at this moment very hard to advocate for a better refugee policy, but especially makes it very hard for refugees to build a new life and to be protected, and indeed to enjoy international protection as the Universal Declaration promises.
Yeah. No, it's certainly very shocking, the switch around that's happened in the Netherlands, where we also live. You brought up a very good point in the beginning of your notes there, Edward, about the war being a driving factor in this refugee situation and crisis. And in fact, it is a war crisis. It's just that displacement is an outcome of that, isn't it? And peace is a great prevention of these problems.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for that summary. And Amir, you've been very patient. Thank you. Can we come to you now and ask you the same question? So, the last few years for you, what you've seen in the Balkans, Eastern Europe, Greece, and the refugee crisis and its impact on human rights?
Yeah, it was really interesting listening to my colleagues, and actually helped me to structure a little bit what I want to say. Now in my head, I want to say it through certain perspectives. So, he's the employee of Save the Children in Northwest Balkan, and but also as a person who used to work for Musicians Without Borders International, and I'm quite into that artistic expression. So I'm really proud to be part of this event, but also looking through perspective, somebody who is directly involved with children. I want to actually express my opinion through several layers. So first one is that programmatic layer that all international NGOs and different organizations are actually doing in the field, providing different kind of services for children, and actually filling the gaps that countries where we have migrants actually are not doing, or they are not doing good enough, or on the level that they should do. But at the same time, just doing activities with migrants and especially unaccompanied minors, it's not always enough. We as an international organization need to work hard on advocating for their rights. We need to put constant pressure on the government and decision makers so they can recognize the needs of migrants in the countries. I can give an example that, for example, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, country where I live, probably everybody know about administrative complexity of that country, but half of the country don't want to have to do anything with the migrants, and they actually close their administrative borders for migrant camps and refugees, etc. So all assistance is provided in a entity of Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. So that blindness of politicians is a real threat to human rights. And I want to say also from the perspective of there is one perspective that a lot of people forgot, and that's a child safeguarding perspective. When I say child safeguarding, I'm also thinking about expertise, knowledge, and attitudes of the people who are working in international organizations and who are providing services for children. Because again, I will tell you experience that Save the Children have, but I'm sure a lot of organizations in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Serbia, and Macedonia, and all other countries, that at the beginning of the migrant crisis, we had a lot of quality people who we could employ to work in child protection, education programs, etc. But now, with 2, 3, 4 years migrant crisis, we just don't have any more quality people with enough professional experience to provide quality support. And then that can put children in danger. So that is also one of the sides of the story that we should talk about. What we as a Save the Children actually did concretely, actually we established Balkan Migration Displacement Hub. That's a kind of virtual support office that is monitoring the situation throughout all Balkan migration route, and even wider, so from Greece, North Macedonia, Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Bulgaria, Romania, Albania, Kosovo, where we are trying to collect all positive practices, all best practice from the field, try to collect information so we can together with other international organizations advocate more properly for human rights of children.
Very well organized. Okay, thank you, Amir. We've actually got a little clip now which will fit well with the themes that you're mentioning here. It's called Global Classroom 2020. It's a short video. It's a UN special report for children deprived of liberty. So we're going to run that now, and when we finish the video, we're going to come back and talk about how artists and arts organizations can support these human rights that we're talking through. So let's have a look at this video, and then we'll come back and look at these other questions as well.
Ima Yelena, Kayelena banana, Ima Yelena Katigani Nguru Kedala, Kokuna Tabu, Yelena banana, Ima Yelena. Ima Yelena, Kayelena banana, Ima Yelena Katigani Nguru Kedala, Kokuna Tabu, Yelena banana. ima Yelena. Ima Yelena, Kayelena banana, Ima Yelena, Katia Ninguru Kedala, Coconut Wood, Yelena banana, Ima Yelena.
Okay, we just had to restart that, so sorry for the hiccup with the video, but I think that all came through now. So following our overviews and introductions, I think it would be good to talk about artists and arts organisations now from Art27. and particularly how arts are standing up for human rights of vulnerable people that are seeking safety in Europe. So there are some grassroots organisations like Flying Seagull, Musicians Without Borders we know of, and people like Banksy, buying a boat and riding. I can't remember what he painted on the side, but he had a big pink boat in the Mediterranean that made the news, and people like Ai Weiwei making statements. Amir, what are you seeing and hearing about artists and arts organisations supporting human rights, please?
Yeah, to be honest, we need to hear them more.
Right.
I would really like to see more artists and organization promoting art as a maybe it will be a strong word, but as a healing tool, because I wrote the note for me here that connection of migrant children and youth with local population started when they figure out that they have similar music. And actually music was the one who was started to connect people, and then they have opportunity to develop their relationship. Why I think it's important to have art more present in a response of international or government organization is because they are not under pressure of I will say this I will be harsh, but KPIs, theories of change and globals, etc. That was all other people who are working in international NGOs under pressure of that. When you put the guy who is a piano player or woman who is saxophone player and to go into workshop with children, they will not have those worries on their mind. They will be able to extract the best from children. And from my experience, the small community projects actually have the biggest impact in the community and wider. And I would like to really say one example, that when I started to work in Srebrenica, and that is also one community that is severely affected in the previous war in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Actually, we started with a small project called Music Bus, where we fill the instruments, van with the instruments, and going from village to village and doing music with children. And from that, from that small project, we established Children Music Theater in Srebrenica that is still operative even 10-15 years after. So those kind of things are actually will bring hope of children. And we hear a lot of organizations who are saying we are organizing psychosocial activities for children. But I think that we are misconfused what psychosocial support means, because again, I'm coming back on the capacities and expertise of the people who are working for those organizations. So and that is closely connected. And I believe that that music as a healing tool can provide much more psychosocial support to children than just dry workshop on the topic of human rights. Don't get me wrong, but I have a problem with workshops for human and child rights, because organizations tend to organize workshops where they are teaching children about their rights. Nobody is teaching children about responsibilities as a part of that convention. So that can go in a totally wrong direction in that. But I have also experienced that we learn human rights through music. So everything is possible if you have quality tools. Save the Children also have developed a program called Art. It's a healing through art. And actually now we are negotiating with Musicians Without Borders to integrate music part in that program. And I believe that the impact of that program will be even greater. But coming back on the topic, it's really great to see that art organizations are in much more closer connection with big international players, let's say, who have a lot of money, and who are implementing activities on this migrant route. Yeah. So that art organization can actually fill the space of the direct work with children.
Right. Yeah, it's a great comment you made at the beginning with those connections sometimes being formed through music. Is it the case that, because to appreciate music together or to make music together, you have to empathize, right? So you're really feeling the other person or the people in a group, and it opens up those channels. Edward, do you have some more to add on this subject, please?
Well, maybe a few things. Thank you. Well, first of all, for me, music is very direct in expressing emotions, either joy or anger, or maybe offering consolation, comfort to people. But it is very direct, and to offer that in an organized way, that seems to be very important to start being in touch with people. And I've seen that not on the Greek islands. Not so much in music, that I haven't seen that experience, but I've seen it myself in Somalia when I was there, and I had very much difficulties of getting really in touch with some youngsters that I met there over a few days, until I had on my phone a downloaded music tape on YouTube, and I showed it to them, and they said, oh, whoa, do you know that, and how possible? So then suddenly you have something you can talk about, and there's some connection, as also Amir just said, and this connecting people, that is very important. Another thing I would like to add is that if there is some making music, some playing together, or if refugees are playing music, I think people in receiving countries look at them in a very, very different way than just people that are desperate staying in camps. And that makes that change of perspective, that can also be very important, to see suddenly that they have some talents. And well, most of you maybe have not seen The Voice of Holland in the Netherlands. But some weeks ago, there was a young Syrian girl, 3 years in the Netherlands, and she sang Imagine. And when she started with Imagine, I first thought, oh, Imagine. But then she really sang beautiful, and after that, a bit in Arabic. And that makes such a difference for the public to see suddenly some of the background of people, and something else than a desperate individual that is looking for new ways of living. And that really can make a difference.
That's a great story, yeah. And you mentioned, Amir, some of these organizations cooperating closely with NGOs, which is also great to see, that they're not isolated, that they're contributing and collaborating and providing a voice and a channel to people in a different way. That's good. So another theme that we have here is the role of the media, and we'll come back to Mitra now, I think. In thinking about the role that media is playing in influencing the public narrative on human rights and refugees in Europe. Could you comment on this for us?
Yes, that's my topic. Well, yeah, let me first say that my role as a journalist, and I think media in general, is not to influence the public narrative. That's not in my job subscription, and it is to inform people about the situation in the countries that I cover, and to tell the stories of the people that I meet, that I go to meet. Of course, I report what I see and hear, but of course, I also choose where I go, and I choose who I speak to. So obviously, there is never, there's no such thing as objectivity. That is a common phrase. But of course, some media did have an enormous role in shaping the narrative around migrants and refugees in the past few years, and especially in countries like Hungary and Serbia as well. But Hungary stands out very much. You have a very unhealthy media environment there. What you see is that the biggest media there are effectively mouthpieces of the government. So if the prime minister says these people are all terrorists, then it will be on the front pages of the biggest newspapers, and that if that will be repeated every day, majority of people who do not have access to other sources, which are a lot of people, that's the only thing that they know. So it has a huge impact, and this is a deep crisis in the media in these authoritarian countries. But what is important, I think, in reporting about this topic is to stay factual, to explain what also the grievances are of these people in Hungary, right? How come they react this way? And it's never black and white as well. This is, to me, so important also to bring across to an audience in the Netherlands, where these grievances are as well, what we talked about before. And so, but what's important for me as a reporter is to really think about the wording you use, because it can have a great impact if you talk about refugees or migrants or both. It is very crucial. These groups of people that cross the Balkan route are not all migrants. They are also not all refugees. So it's a mix, and so this is something that I advocate, that we also always call them in articles or in reports. Try to call them migrants and refugees, or and also pay attention to the calling them people every once in a while. It's very important to avoid dehumanizing migrants and refugees. These are all things that for me personally in my work are important. But besides that, it's just a matter of informing, reporting, speaking to all the people who are involved, the NGOs, the people who work in the field, but also the people who live in the areas where these camps are located, where there are a lot of problems around, and it usually comes down to grievances, dissatisfaction with local governments, with governments of the country, like in Bosnia. So there's always something beneath that.
Okay, yeah, you touched on a good point there. About not labeling people, and we've often said in art27 that refugee is a situation, not an identity. This is not my words, but I think it's a good summary. So what you're saying is then you're trying to be as objective as possible. You're looking at a range of sources before you sit down to write something, but there's always the risk that there's a megaphone for a politician, and they can use television and mass media to sway public in one direction or another. And you think that in Hungary that's been particularly severe?
Yeah. Yes. And
Okay.
you see it, I mean, that's also in Europe. I mean, if you look at British newspapers, for example, and if you look at the picture that was used in the I think one of the election campaigns of Viktor Orban, it's a picture of a big group of migrants and refugees walking on a street, probably from the 2015-16 crisis. That same picture was used, I believe, by UKIP in the UK as well, as a campaign picture with sort of stop them from coming. So that's
we all know how that ended. So okay. All right, that's a really good summary. We're also collecting questions on Facebook. If anybody wants to write in and ask our very knowledgeable panelists anything in particular, then write it down there, please, and it will come straight to us. And one of the last questions from my side here is, and this is for anyone speaking today, how can the arts community step up to help shape new shared identities in Europe? And that's a question for anyone, please. So shared identities in Europe. Everyone's pensive and thinking.
Yeah,
I'm here.
Sure. Sure. No, I can try. It is really a tough question and interesting question because it is kind of connected with what also Mitra was saying, that the perception of the people about migrants is the perception of media or perception created through stories that media published. Nobody never write a story about somebody that is nuclear engineer in Syria, but that he's a migrant, and then kind of they lost identity during the way. They are just migrants. They are nothing else. So I'm thinking now with the role of music, actually, that because the arts is the one that is quite direct, as Edward said, and actually through art we need to raise capacity of underprivileged people, of migrants in this case, to speak up for themselves, because at this moment a lot of human rights are being violated, and if you have any migrant who can sue the Bosnia and Herzegovina, he will win it in any court in the world. So it's about raising awareness, not only about their rights but about themselves. So I'm thinking that change needs to start from the ground level. We cannot persuade anybody on a high level. These are not just migrants. We need to empower people to be able to fight themselves, and that they are able by themselves to change perspective, to change perception of other people about them, of course with support of all other organizations and advocacy groups, etc. But power need to be in them, and I believe that where the role of art and art organization can be, that they build from ground up, because they have tool, they have expertise, they have way how to reach inside of the people and to wake in them everything what probably is hidden under layer and layer of disappointment throughout the years. The art is the one that can dig that out. So in my mind, that's how I see the art and art organization.
That's a beautiful image. Okay, thank you, Amir. And for Edward and then Mitra, I'd like to ask you for your closing comments, please. What would you like people to think about, consider, and change in support of human rights based on everything that they've seen and heard today? So if you could try to keep your closing comments to about 1 minute, no pressure. Edward, if you may.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, but, well, I'll try to keep it within 1 minute. What I would like
roughly
to happen is that I see that a lot of people are generally very supportive for refugees, but I see that in the public debate that is so tough and so harsh that people are a bit hesitant to speak out. And I would love more people, that if more people would speak out, because that would really change. And if music or music events would help people to be able to speak out, that would really be great. But this is, for me, the most important what should happen now.
Right. Fantastic. Mitra?
Yeah. Well, as a journalist, I don't really see it my place to tell people what is the right thing to do. And also, I guess the audience we're speaking to are people who have warm feelings for refugees and migrants in a broad sense. These are not people that you have to convince but I would generally say I hope that we keep seeing people who cross routes like the Balkan routes as people who have a history, who have a story, and that each story is different and nobody's the same, and to keep yourself informed and to stick also with the facts and not be afraid to ask difficult questions as well.
Perfect. That's a great summary. Well, thank you everyone for joining our panel. It's been a lively discussion, some great themes that we've covered today, and I hope that our viewers and listeners have enjoyed this as much as we have, and this will also go out and be saved, and people can find this in the months and years to come as well. And yeah, I wish you all a pleasant end of 2020 and going into 2021, all your endeavors and travels, and please stay safe wherever you are and wherever you go, and your families. And yeah, thanks for spending time with us today on International Day for Human Rights.
Thank you.
Thank you for facilitating.
All right. Thank you.